Testing. Mic check 1 2. So and so called your name. So? What's new? F him. F them and F you. Who knows which rapper that is? UK rapper. Anyway, we're not going to talk too much about music here. I want to get straight into the topics at hand. Boxing news. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I've done my mic check. I trust you guys can hear me. Yep, that's right. Kano, what's the song called? What's the song called? Anyone know the name of the song? Mic check. Yes, the great one. It is indeed mic check. Sosa says we need some Vibes Cartel. Shout out to G-Man in the chat. Shout out to Same. He also got it. Mic check 1 2. Yes. All right. Can I get some likes here, folks? We're struggling with the likes. Only got 43 likes and 167 concurrent viewers. There should be at least 80 likes, 70, 80 likes. Let's get the likes up, folks, before we start this. We got plenty to talk about here. We got Tyson Fury coming out saying some stuff. And it's not just the stuff that Tyson Fury is saying, but he doesn't quite look the way he should. Speak about that in a second. Can I get 10 more likes? Let's get 10 more likes before we proceed. Because we got 182 concurrent viewers. Get a few more likes in there. We're nearly there. 3 more. 3 more likes. And then we'll start. Here we go. Got 90. Wow, it jumped up there. So let's get right into it. Shout out to Callum. Come on, people. Just press the button. Indeed. So first on the agenda, Tyson Fury put this post up on his Instagram page. You guys can see it there. And by the way, if my audio sounds a little slightly different today, I'm using the same mic. I've just removed the pop filter so I can talk more closely to the mic. You know, you get that radio effect. It's called the proximity effect. Anyway, so Tyson Fury put this post up on Instagram, and as you can see, he said, there's a picture there of Usyk hitting him with that big left hand in the 9th round. And he said, you had your shot, but couldn't finish the job. Mistake. Now you're about to feel the wrath of a menace. He's quoting Tupac. And he says, F Alexander Usyk, F Klimas Management, F Alex Krasuk, and if you're down with Usyk, then F you too. Gypsy King 2024 coming for you. December 21st is mine. Me against the world, incoming 3-time heavyweight champ. Now, some people are going to roast Tyson Fury over this, right? But personally, I mean, there are so many things I could roast Tyson Fury over, but in this particular instance, I actually like the defiance from Fury. You know, if a guy's beating you and taking your unbeaten record and he gave you a beating in the fight, you know, Tyson Fury took more punishment against Usyk than he's taken in any fight previously. When you're trying to come back from a situation like that, I want you to be defiant. I want you to be a bit spiky. I mean, it's not necessary every time, obviously, but, you know, showing that type of defiance is setting the tone for how you know, if the fight goes ahead, intend to set about your opponent. Yeah, you can talk respectfully and all that kind of thing, but when you get in the ring, respect needs to go out the window. You need to be able to take it to this guy. You need to be able to take the fight by the scruff of the neck, take the bull by the horns and tear into this guy. So, you know, as much as I criticize Tyson Fury, as I always say on this channel, no fighter is below praise. No fighter is above criticism. And Tyson Fury has definitely done some things, many things in his career, which, as far as I'm concerned, are praiseworthy. And I'm not saying it's praiseworthy of him necessarily to be saying F you to all these different people, but I don't know. I like the attitude. If you're going to go in there and try to beat a guy who's got a win over you, then you're not going in there to try and make friends necessarily, unless you want to maybe lull him into a full sense of security. Tyson Fury's coming out defiant. But that's if the fight goes ahead, and I'm not saying it won't. But you've heard Duke McKenzie say he doesn't think the fight's going to go ahead. And Tyson Fury, to me, looked heavy at the Dubois-Joshua fight. And there was this interview. You guys see this on screen? This interview was uploaded earlier on today, right? Tyson Fury talking about whatever. But have a close look at the way he appears in this video. He is clearly a lot heavier than he was when he fought Usyk. And we're, 3 months out from the fight? And this is how heavy Tyson Fury is looking. Now, he's not looking like the heaviest I've ever seen him in his whole career, but he definitely looks significantly heavier than, he was when he fought Usyk in May. Significantly heavier. And we know that Tyson Fury has a habit of gaining weight between fights and all this kind of thing. But, after that footage came out of Fury falling on his face outside of a pub, he then, a few days later, posted another video of him training as he was, acting like, oh, I'm back in the gym and I'm doing this and that and I'm going to fight Usyk and beat him next time and blah, blah, blah. And so people wanted to dispel fears that Tyson Fury had fallen off the wagon and wasn't taking the Usyk defeat very well, right? So they started saying, no, look, he's back in the gym. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's going to smash Usyk to bits. Well, the size of Tyson Fury here, is this a man who's been in the gym 3 months out from the fight? You guys tell me. Because, yeah, less than 3 months now, right? So, I mentioned in a video before, maybe Fury wants to put a bit of weight on for strategic reasons. Maybe he felt like he was too weak against Usyk. Maybe he was surprised that the much smaller man, the cruiserweight, was able to be so physical with him, push him back and bully him in there. So maybe he feels like he needs a bit of extra timber on him. Or maybe he's just not training. Maybe he doesn't actually intend to go ahead with this fight. We will find out in due course. All right, what Tyson Fury decides to do. But let me know what you guys think in the chat about Tyson Fury's weight. Does he look, is it just me? Are my eyes deceiving me? Or does he look heavy here? Again, I'm not saying he's the heaviest I've ever seen him, but he definitely looks a lot heavier than he was in May. A lot heavier. Whereas with Usyk, he looks the same. You want to compare fighters. Usyk looks the same now as he did in May. There's very little difference. Whereas with Tyson Fury, now he don't look the same. Ocean Blue says he's been in the gym fridge. Yeah. Time will tell. Adam Patrick says his face looks heavier. It certainly does. Ben says Usyk is a blown up, I guess he meant to say middleweight. Yeah, he's doing all right for a blown up middleweight, isn't he? Am I Dead Yet says, what can Fury do better to beat Usyk if he can do anything? Well, this notion that he didn't really train that hard for the first fight, to me is just ridiculous. Because he came in heavy against Ngannou. And for the Usyk fight, he was something like the best part of 20 pounds lighter. It was the lightest he'd been for 5 years against Usyk. So if he didn't train and he didn't take it seriously, or as seriously as he should have done, then why did he come in the lightest weight for 5 years? Lighter than he was for, I think, the last 2 Wilder fights. Yeah, you don't get down to that kind of weight, the lightest for 5 years, if you're not taking somebody seriously. He obviously took Usyk very seriously. Yeah. So I don't know where Tyson Fury is trying to go with that. G-Man, shout out to G-Man. He says, Fury's still trying to push the narrative that Usyk has the boxing establishment behind him. Honestly, the man is something else. Yeah, well, the reality is Fury had the establishment behind him. The establishment desperately wanted Fury to win the fight. Yeah, they desperately wanted him to win the fight. It's the public that Tyson Fury had basically lost the support of, not the establishment. The establishment all wanted to make Fury versus Joshua. That was the fight they were pushing relentlessly. So he had the establishment 100%, 110%. Because, as I say, they wanted to make the Joshua fight. Alexander Usyk is the guy who came in. He was the fly in the ointment. That's what Alexander Usyk has been to the boxing establishment. He's been a fly in the ointment. He's messed up all their plans because they were all planning for AJ to do this and AJ to do that. And of course, Usyk came along and said, nah, mate, we're taking this division in a different direction. And Fury said, okay, well, first Dubois, right? He comes up and tries to have a go. And we'll talk about that in a second. And Usyk fought back his challenge. And then there was just one of the main British heavyweights left in Tyson Fury. And Usyk done him as well. So, you know, the idea that the establishment were behind Usyk is ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. Obviously, the establishment were behind Joshua and Fury. They wanted those two guys to fight. It would have been a bonanza when they were both still champions. Usyk ripped up the script. Yeah, ripped up the script. Okay, Kai says the establishment has no incentive to make Fury win now that AJ got sparked. Yeah, but the thing is, right, the establishment might not be as keen, the boxing establishment that is, they might not be as keen on the Fury-Joshua fight now as they were a few years ago. But think about it. Alexander Usyk does not have a major promoter. So he's not signed to Frank Warren. He's not signed to Eddie Hearn. He's not signed to Bob Arum. He's not signed to PBC. Yes, he has a promoter in Alex Krasuk, but Alex Krasuk is like what Adam Booth was when he was quote unquote promoting David Haye. Or how about, what's the guy called now? Dave Coldwell. Yeah. When he was promoting David Haye. I mean, it was basically David Haye promoting himself, but they had the promoter's license, right? So on paper, it was an Adam Booth promotion or a Dave Coldwell promotion, but in practice, it was a David Haye promotion. Do you know what I mean? Haymaker Promotions and all that, but the person with the license was Adam Booth at one time anyway. And that's the way I see Usyk with Alex Krasuk. Like, how? I mean, what shows does Alex Krasuk actually put on these days? Do you know what I mean? So the point I'm really making here is that Usyk is essentially a free agent of sorts. Yeah, he is detached from the boxing establishment. And the boxing establishment doesn't really like people who are free agents like that, especially if they're not massive cash cows. And Usyk is a big name, but he's not like Joshua was at the peak of his popularity, or even Tyson Fury. Yeah, and they don't like guys like that. You know what I mean? The only people that they are happy to be, not even happy, but they're willing to accept somebody being a free agent is when they're a really massive star, like a Canelo Alvarez, a Mayweather back in the days. I mean, they weren't even happy with him doing what he did, but he just used to draw so much money and attention, they had to accept it. So, yeah, Usyk is still detached from the boxing establishment, and I don't think they particularly like that. So if they could get somebody to beat him, I mean, it all depends on how long he's going to stick around for, right? But I think they will prefer somebody to beat him, somebody who's more marketable in the Anglo-sphere. I think that's what they will prefer. Shout out to Seamus for the super chat. Thank you, sir. All right, let's move on to the next bit of boxing news here. Anthony Yarde is back. Now, this one kind of came out of the blue because I need to adjust my mic a little bit here. Get a bit close. Turn it down slightly. Yeah, so Anthony Yarde went missing amidst this issue with Frank Warren, who up until earlier on today, we assumed was still Anthony Yarde's promoter because he was very insistent and Frank Warren tends to win legal cases. But now we get this announcement from Anthony Yarde via his social media, Instagram, that he's going to be on a boxer show, Sky Sports, later on this month, October 19th. This will be on the Adam Azim O'Hara Davis undercard. Surprise to me, but many fighters have gone the same way. You know, Lawrence Okolie, of course, went that route. Joshua Buatsi went that route. Chris Billum-Smith went that route, so on and so forth. Not all from Frank Warren. Some of them, you know, went from Eddie Hearn. So, yeah, Anthony Yarde is back October 19th. Did he win? If there was a legal case, and I don't know whether there was, but if there was a legal case, did he win the legal case? That's what I want to know. Did he actually win it? Because not many people win legal cases against Frank Warren. Believe you me, I've been following that guy's career for decades, and very few fighters managed to come out on top in any type of legal battle with him. So yeah, be interested to find out what's going on there. But Yarde is fighting October 19th. Opponent to be determined. You can see there, that's the fight poster. Anthony Yarde. And, you know, it's not often that undercard fighters get their own poster for a particular show. But Anthony Yarde, because he is a name in the UK, he gets his own poster for the show, as if he's the main event when he's actually an undercard fighter. So that's interesting. That's Ben Shalom, you know, harnessing the marketing power of Anthony Yarde. So, yeah, just to respond to a super chat here. Shout out to Lennox Mate for the super chat. Thank you very much, sir. He says, it shows how far British and European heavyweights have come. It took a Ukrainian to beat all the top British heavyweights to be crowned the king. Indeed. But this is why the establishment are not too happy about it. You know, because he isn't in the Anglosphere. And the heavyweight division has been controlled within the Anglosphere for a long time. Obviously, there was the Klitschko era. But yeah, after the Klitschko era, and certainly before, it's been the Anglosphere for as long as I can remember. And yeah, the boxing establishment, not happy about that. You know, not happy about it going to Alexander Usyk, that is, away from the Anglosphere. They don't like that, especially since he's not signed to one of the major UK or American promoters anymore. He used to be, right? He was with Eddie Hearn for a while. But now he's basically flying solo, you know, with Krasuk, and they're not too happy about that. But you put all that patriotism and all that kind of stuff aside, and you just look at it as a boxing fan. Alexander Usyk is one of the best fighters I've ever seen in my life. Just being real. If you think about the way he's moved through his career and everything he's done, I'm not trying to be a fanboy. You know, you get some people, oh, you're an Usyk fanboy. I'm like, hang on. This is a guy who didn't mess about in the cruiserweight division, who fought everybody there was to fight, who even waited at cruiserweight, you know, rather than moving up to heavyweight earlier, as he could have done. He waited to fight Tony Bellew, who didn't even have a belt, but Tony Bellew had a claim to still being the best cruiserweight in the world, right? Because he didn't lose his belt in the ring. So Usyk was like, okay, I'll fight you too. Just to leave. Yes, it was a payday. You know, we understand that. But it was also a risk. And Usyk was like, I don't care about that. Yeah? If this guy is trying to make any kind of claim that he's the best cruiserweight and I haven't faced him, all right, I'm going to leave no stone unturned and I'll beat him too. And that's what he did. So he literally cleaned out the cruiserweight division. I mean, when he had defenses of his cruiserweight titles, he was fighting people like Michael Hunter, who was a very useful fighter back then. Very useful. He was fighting people like, what's his name now? The Rock from South Africa. God, I forget his name. You know, the short little South African fighter. Southpaw. Very skillful. Beat Eddie Chambers. They call him The Rock. I can't remember his name now. But he beat him too. So even his defenses were tough fights, were good opponents. He wasn't fighting puddings and Machunu. Thank you, G-Man. Yes, Machunu. So, you know, Usyk cleaned out the cruiserweight division. He then steps up to heavyweight. He gets his feet wet with the Chad Witherspoon fight and the Chisora fight. And then he goes in there and does AJ twice. Right? And then after that, he's trying to unify immediately. Immediately. He's not messing about. He's not trying to build the fight up and do that. No. He's immediately trying to unify. How many champions actually do that? How many champions? All right, there's a troll here in the chat. Let's troll out here. Yeah, how many champions immediately go for the jugular and try to take on the best when they've first won their title? Start trying to unify straight away with the most dangerous champions. How many fighters do that when they pick up a belt? Most of them don't. Most of them will try milk the belt for a while. Yeah. Go around the houses. That's what most of them do. That's what David Haye did. When he beat Valuev, and he was supposed to fight Vitaly Klitschko, by the way. Yeah. He pulled out of the Vitaly Klitschko fight and instead fought Valuev because it was an easier fight. Obviously, he came up with some ridiculous excuse. But yeah, he was supposed to fight Vitaly, but he found an easier route to a title against Valuev, and that's what he took. And then after beating Valuev, did he fight Klitschko right away? No. He messed about for 2 years, milking the WBA belt, and it was the full belt. There are some people who mistakenly claim that David Haye was only the regular champion. No, when David Haye won the WBA title from Valuev, the regular belt didn't exist, at least not in the heavyweight division then. It was created after Klitschko beat Haye. That's when they created the WBA regular belt in the heavyweight division. It got split into two. That's when Klitschko became super champion, and then they had some regular champion. So anyway, David Haye milked the WBA belt for 2 years, avoided Klitschko for 2 years. That is typical of new champions. That's what they tend to do. Alexander Usyk said, nah, despite being in his, mid-30s, he was going for the jugular. He was going for the toughest fights, the biggest names. You know, he wanted to be number one for real. Not number one by manipulating the public perception. No, number one, doing it the old school way, the way it's supposed to be done, beating fighters in the ring. Whoever else claims to be the top guy, whoever else has got a belt, I want to fight him. That was Usyk's attitude from day one at cruiserweight. That was his attitude at day one from heavyweight. And he goes in there and he doesn't run around the ring, you know, like Speedy Gonzalez or something. No. He's actually taking it to much bigger, younger guys. What is there not to like? I don't get it. If you're a boxing fan, what is there not to like about Usyk? Yeah, it's not a fanboy thing. I'm just objectively asking the question, what is there not to like? You know, isn't that what we want all champions to be? How we want all of them to behave? It should be, if you're a real boxing fan. So he's the man. That's it. Anyway, back to Anthony Yarde. I'm very intrigued to find out what happened here and whether Frank Warren has lost a legal case, because Frank Warren was insistent that Anthony Yarde still had fights left on his contract with him. But Anthony Yarde is now signed with Boxer, seemingly. So does that mean, again, Warren has either lost the case or maybe Boxer bought him out of his contract? Because that does happen from time to time. Remember Floyd Mayweather back in the days bought his way out of his top rank contract. As Anthony Yarde bought his way out of contract, has Ben Shalom put the money up for Anthony Yarde to buy his way out of the contract? But the thing is, when somebody buys you out of your contract for you, then you're basically going out of the frying pan and into the fire. Yeah, because you didn't like the stranglehold that your previous promoter had over you. And if the new promoter is buying you out of the contract, well, that's obviously going to come with strings. That's obviously going to come with a commitment and a responsibility, etc. So it's like you're not really bettering your situation if you do that. So, but one thing I can say is Ben Shalom is not similar to Eddie Hearn in terms of charisma or any of that. But because he's a relative newcomer in the market, he's having to offer the fighters more attractive deals than the other promoters are in order to build his stable. That's what Eddie Hearn did in the early days. Eddie Hearn tended to treat fighters better than the other promoters. That's how he was able to attract them. And so that's what Ben Shalom seems like he's doing right now. It doesn't mean Ben Shalom is a better person than Eddie Hearn or anything, but it's the situation which, you know, necessitates that he treats these fighters better. So shout out to Lennox Mate for the super chat. He said Holyfield took 7 fights to become heavyweight champ. That's a very good point. Holyfield had a much longer road to the heavyweight title. Yeah, so the jokers out there who say, oh, when Usyk moved up to heavyweight, he didn't jump straight in with AJ. He was fighting Chad Witherspoon and Derek Chisora. Well, he's moving up a weight class. This is not like moving up from featherweight to super featherweight. We're talking about a guy moving from the 200-pound weight division up to fighting guys who are 250 pounds plus. We're not talking about a 3-pound increase. We're talking about massive, 50-pound plus increase in the size of his opponents. So you can definitely, give him a couple of fights to get acclimatized to the weight division, surely. But, there are some idiots out there acting like it's terrible that Usyk had those 2 fights moving up there. Come on, silly. All right, so Anthony Yarde seemingly signs with Ben Shalom. You can see Anthony Yarde's BoxRec page here. He's 25-3. 24 of his wins by knockout. He's now 33 years of age. So surely it's the last roll of the dice for Anthony Yarde. He had to go against Kovalev. Had him in trouble in the 8th, but couldn't get it done. He gave it a good go against Beterbiev, but also got stopped. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens after this undisputed fight. If the belts get fragmented, will Anthony Yarde be able to fight Joshua Buatsi finally? Because Buatsi is a boxer fighter, right? He's a Ben Shalom fighter. So if Yarde Buatsi is ever going to happen, it's going to happen now. Now that Anthony Yarde is seemingly signed with Ben Shalom. Yarde and Buatsi both under the same promotional stable. Maybe Ben Shalom will be maneuvering, looking to get these guys fighting for a vacant belt. That'd actually be huge in the UK. Yarde Buatsi in the UK for the vacant, whatever, WBA, that would be massive. So, yeah, this is a good look for Ben Shalom. I've been talking about Anthony Yarde and Frank Warren and the back and forth legally. But for Ben Shalom, this is actually a really good look. Yeah, Joshua Buatsi hasn't fought for a world title yet. Very few people would believe he could beat either of the champions. But if you think back to the way that Eddie Hearn built his brand, and obviously Matchroom is a brand that goes back many decades, but the way he rebuilt the name Matchroom within boxing was to concentrate on grassroots. Yeah, Eddie Hearn, when he started out on Sky, he was doing the prize fighter shows. You guys remember that? Constantly doing the prize fighter shows. And they were very popular. And he was getting fighters from, first of all, in the UK, but also overseas. He was getting some old, ex-champions, James Toney and people like that. And prize fighter became very popular. A little night out for the lads and all that. Yeah. And he was doing it on a regular basis. He had consistency. And from then, obviously, there was the Carl Froch years. So, yeah, that's the way that Eddie Hearn built up his brand in the UK, built up his rapport with the fans and so on. Now, again, Ben Shalom's never going to have that kind of charisma to be able to replicate what Eddie Hearn did exactly. A shout out to Sazad for the super chat. He said, hey, bro, appreciate the vids and the Patreons. Shout out to you. Big up. But yeah, Ben Shalom's never going to be able to replicate Eddie Hearn as far as charisma. But in terms of focusing on domestic, homegrown talent and homegrown rivalries, that is a formula that has worked for a long time. He got it right with the, eventually, with the Fraser Clark-Fabio Wardley fight. That worked out very well for him, the first one. And now there's the potential here to do Anthony Yarde and Joshua Buatsi, since he seems like he's signed Anthony Yarde now. So let's see what happens here. And that's the show. So you got Michael McKinson on there. He's fighting. You got Adam Azim versus O'Hara Davis. Yarde against TBA in a 10-rounder. You got Dan Aziz on there. You got Jamie TKV against Franklin Ignatius. I always find that name entertaining for some reason. Ignatius. Yeah. Nigerians like picking these odd names for their kids. That's another one, Ignatius. Anyway, let's move on to Don Charles. Oh yes, Don Charles. What's he been saying lately? Well, it's actually something he said in an interview I spoke about on the last live stream, I think it was. So, after the Dubois fight, Usyk Dubois, Don Charles came out and was saying that, you know, Usyk is a cheat and is a liar and this, that, and the other. Well, he's continuing in that same vein now. So here we have Don Charles. This was it says 4 hours ago, but this was actually after the I took this screenshot months ago, or a year ago, whenever it was. Yeah, and he called Usyk a cheater. Okay, I'm trying to be as restrained as possible here when I talk about Don Charles in this segment, but it's very difficult for reasons that will become apparent. So we'll move on to the next screenshot here. This was from the TalkSport interview he did the other day. Don Charles lashes out at cheat Alexander Usyk, dares him to rematch Dubois in sensational rant. He called Usyk a fake, a liar, and a cheat. Now, those sound like potentially slanderous comments to me, right? Defamatory comments, potentially. And he's coming out saying stuff like that. So why would he call him a cheat, a liar, and a fake? Why would he say that? Has he had some kind of interaction with Usyk that went wrong? Did he see something behind the curtain that he shouldn't have seen, a different side to the guy? What is it? Well, it's none of that. They quizzed him on it on TalkSport, and basically he said it's because of the low blow incident. Because of that, he's accusing the man of being a cheat, a fake, and a liar. I mean, let's just go over what actually happened, right? Before we get to some other Don Charles nonsense here. So here we have the low blow, which is what it was. You can see the picture on screen there. I've drawn a line there for your convenience. You see the black line there? That is the bottom of Usyk's waistband. And it's quite a thick waistband, but that's the bottom of it. Now look at Daniel Dubois' glove. It clearly lands well below the bottom of his waistband. So anybody trying to say it was on the belt, you're talking rubbish. It did not connect, but yeah, it was kind of an uppercut punch. So as he followed through with it, the end of the punch finished a bit higher than that. But where it initially connected was well below the waistline, well below the belt line. Look at it right there. It is clear as day. And by the way, Don Charles in that interview said that he doesn't need to watch the replay because everybody always tries to get him to watch the slow motion replay. He said, no, I was there. I don't need to watch it. Yeah, this is the reason he doesn't want to watch it. This is the reason. Because it was a low blow. He would rather not watch it so he doesn't have to confront the fact that he's talking absolute rubbish. That's what it is. He doesn't want to have to confront the fact that he's talking out of his backside. That's why you don't want to look at the replay. It's right there. Yeah. Here's a closer picture of it. Now, if you can't see that's a low blow, you need spec savers. Simple as that. Clearly it's low. And, you know, for those people saying that Usyk's shorts were too high, you know, Tyson Fury tried to make that claim. Load of rubbish. These are Usyk's shorts in the fight. You can clearly see the top of his belly button there. So his shorts were not pulled up way over his belly button at all. Load of rubbish. Load of rubbish. It was a clear low blow. Okay. And so think about this. This is the next thing, right? So how on earth could you possibly say that Usyk cheated because he went down after getting hit clearly low? How is that cheating? Like, Don Charles has always been a donut, but they say that money changes you, success changes you. It doesn't really change you. It just amplifies what you already are. And since he started out as a donut already, he's now an even bigger donut since having this success with Daniel Dubois. He's now lost his mind completely and talking, you know, the most amount of rubbish. It's at an all-time high, the nonsense coming out of this man's mouth. Unbelievable. Again, I'm trying to be restrained here, but when I hear a man talk that much rubbish, it grinds my gears. Yeah? How disrespectful and stupid is Don Charles being saying the stuff he's saying? And, you know, talking about Usyk took all this time on the ground. Yeah, in boxing rules, Don, you should know as a trainer, you're allowed up to 5 minutes. Usyk didn't take 5 minutes. He could have taken 5 minutes. He didn't take 5 minutes. Yeah, he took several minutes, whether it was 3 and a bit, 3.5. He could have taken 5. So if you're allowed up to 5 minutes and you take 3.5, please explain to me which part of that is cheating. I mean, as an outsider looking in, it looks like Don Charles has defamed Usyk. He's slandered him. That's the way it looks to me, because the man didn't cheat at all. He got hit with a clearly low blow. It obviously hurt him. Where does the lying come into it? He's calling Alexander Usyk a liar. How's he a liar? We can see the video evidence for ourselves. He got hit with a low blow. What is this guy talking? Honestly. But as I say, Don Charles, I've always thought he was a donut. And, you know, because of the success he's having with Dubois, it's just amplified it. Now he's like a supreme Krispy Kreme donut. Before he was just a regular Tesco donut. Now he's a Krispy Kreme. Yeah, now he's a jumbo donut. It's all gone to his head. So, back in the days, you guys may remember this. Talk a bit more about Don Charles, right? I'm sure you all remember the brawl in Germany where David Haye had a punch up with Derek Chisora and Don Charles. And David Haye done both of them by himself. You guys remember that? He done Derek Chisora and Don Charles on his own. Like, Adam Booth weren't even getting involved in the brawl. Haye done the pair of them. And Don Charles is still salty about that incident till this day. He's still salty about the David Haye incident, right? Now, I remember not long after it happened, hearing David Haye say that Don Charles wanted to fight him. I'm not sure if he meant in a boxing match or a straightener on the cobbles, but Don Charles wanted to fight him. It was ridiculous then, and as the years passed, Don Charles continued to say that he wanted to fight David Haye. Yeah. This is a video from 3 years ago. Don Charles saying, it's personal. I'll kick his butt. Insists he has a score to settle with David Haye. The man still can't let it go. David Haye broke his jaw, by the way, in that altercation in Germany. Don Charles had Had to have his jaw wired. He lost like 50 pounds in a month or something. Had to eat his meals through a straw. Had to drink his meals through a straw. Don Charles still salty after all these years. And the thing that made Don Charles really upset, not just the fact that that happened to him, but also the fact that Derek Chisora went and became David Haye's friend. That really upset Don Charles. He didn't get it. He was like, hang on, this guy punched you up as well. And you're not mad. And this is the real point I want to make here, because Don Charles goes around questioning Alexander Usyk's faith. He calls him a fake. And he's literally gone in on Usyk's belief in God and Jesus and all this type of stuff. Yeah, saying he don't believe it. So here we have Don Charles claiming that he's a man of God. What happened to forgiveness, Don? Huh? What happened to turn the other cheek? How come Derek Chisora can forgive David Haye, but you can't forgive him, and you claim to be a man of God? Huh? Another what you see, whenever I see these people who are constantly talking about how godly they are, how pious they are, I always get suspicious. If you're really that pious and godly, you know, that much of a believer in God and sincere about it, you wouldn't need to remind us about it every 5 seconds. But that's what you get with Don Charles. And oh, God this, God that, God the other. Oh, really? And you're still holding feelings over the David Haye thing. What was it, over a decade ago? Derek Chisora let it go. You're still holding feelings over it. You're coming out here questioning Usyk's faith, saying he's a fake and he's a liar and he's this, that, and the other. For what? For getting hit with a low blow off. You're a fighter. That makes him a liar. He could have taken 5 minutes. He took 3.5. Where is the fake? Where is the lying? Like, how did he cheat? What are you talking about? This guy, he's always been the biggest whopper going, but now he's just taking it to a next level. Huh? And let me show you who Don Charles really is. So this is a video from 5 years ago. Yeah. Derek Chisora kept, and let's word it correctly, right? He kept firing Don Charles. Yes, he kept firing Don Charles and then bringing him back, you know, down the line whenever he thought, okay, I'll bring Don in for this fight. I'll fire him for this one, bring him in for this one. Yeah, he kept firing Don Charles and then bringing him back. And after a while, Don started saying, I'm not going to work with Chisora again. I'm a man with pride. I'm a man of my word. I stick to my word. How many times did Don Charles say he weren't going to work with Chisora and then go back on his word? Like I said a few videos back, this guy is so desperate for glory, and he's been so desperate for glory for all these years, that his pride, not even pride, his dignity is for sale. If you can get this guy his 5 minutes of glory, he will forego any dignity he may have. And that's why he kept on taking Chisora back after Chisora fired him repeatedly. And Don Charles said, oh, I won't take Chisora back. I've got pride. And then you went and took him back. Man's so desperate for glory. And that's why, despite the Dubois setup being very weird, where during the fights, Dubois is actually listening to his dad and he's not listening to Don. Don puts up with that. That's been going on for the last 3 fights now. Yeah, it was going on during the Miller fight, the Hrgovic fight, and the AJ fight. Go watch the AJ fight back. The whole fight in 4K is on Turki Al Sheikh's YouTube channel. Go watch it. And you'll see in between rounds, Daniel Dubois still listening to his dad. And most trainers are not going to have that. They're not going to put up with it. Yeah. Do you not think that Mark Tibbs knew the potential that Daniel Dubois had, knew that with his guidance, Dubois could have become a champion? Mark Tibbs would have seen the potential, but Mark Tibbs has enough dignity about him to say, you know what? The dad has got too much control here. I'm the head coach. If I'm going to work with Daniel, I'm the guy that he listens to, not his dad or this one or that one. He listens to me. Yeah? Mark Tibbs had too much self-respect to go ahead and work with Daniel Dubois under those circumstances. Don Charles, not so much. Don Charles, so hungry for glory that he went back on his word with Chisora how many times, took him back. Well, not even, take him back is probably not the right word. Chisora picked him up and put him down like some kind of toy, like some kind of plaything. And Don Charles accepted that role for years. The man of principle. Right? And then with Daniel Dubois, he's getting disrespected by his own fighter during the fight in front of millions of people watching around the world. And he continues on with Dubois. Why? Because he wants that glory. Wants the paycheck too. Yeah? And that's okay. You see, if Don Charles didn't talk so much rubbish, I wouldn't even be having a go at him here. Yeah? Because at the end of the day, everybody's got to earn a living. I can't judge a next man for, well, I can judge a little bit, certain people, but yeah, if Don Charles wants to take a fighter back who's fired him a bunch of times, I've got no issue with that per se. He's got to earn a living. It's just the fact that Don Charles acts so high and mighty on his moral high horse all the time, talking about God this and God that, and trashing Alexander Usyk's character the way he did. When it's his fighter that did something wrong. And he's calling Usyk a cheat and a liar and it's unreal. The audacity of Don Charles. But as I say, he was a donut to begin with. And now that he's become successful with Dubois, the success has just amplified. It's magnified what he already was. And now he's saying stuff even more stupid than he's ever said in the past. It's like, since John Fury has disappeared, Don Charles has tried to come in and basically, replace him almost, An older guy in his 60s, running his mouth off, talking absolute rubbish. Yeah. And like with David Haye, he wanted to fight David. I mean, come on. Why is this guy calling out, a fighter 20 years younger than him, who's a former heavyweight champion, thinking he can fight him? This is literally John Fury territory now. What absolute nonsense. Honestly. It's just absolute nonsense. And you knew that Don Charles had completely lost the plot when he went on to TalkSport and started slagging off Gareth A. Davis for literally no reason. And look, I've criticized Gareth A. Davis for good reason, but in this particular instance, he's acting like Gareth A. Davis has a personal vendetta against him based upon what? Based upon the fact that Gareth A. Davis picked against Daniel Dubois in his last few fights. Daniel Dubois quit in 2 fights. Why on earth wouldn't most people pick against that? And he's not even taking it as Gareth A. Davis having something against Dubois. No, he's somehow construed it in his head that Davis picking against Dubois means that Gareth A. Davis got a problem with Don Charles. Sometimes I get people commenting on my videos or turning up in the chat saying, why are you so harsh on Don Charles? And I would ask a question back. Why are you not harsh enough on him? The man talks the most amount of rubbish. So honestly, it does my head in, the amount of rubbish this guy talks. Shout out to Ricky Torres for the super chat. He says, Don surely, surly and sour, wouldn't shake Jerome Miller's hand after Dubois won. I think said Usyk was hurt and now he was faking. How can you have it both ways? Indeed, that's a good point. Thank you, Ricky Torres. Yeah, he said Usyk was hurt. He said it was a legit body shot. He wasn't low and he was hurt. Okay, so if he's on the ground and he's hurt, then how can he be faking? Because you're saying he's hurt. I told you this guy, Don Charles talks the most amount of absolute pop. It's like, that guy's just something else. Success goes to people's heads. Yeah, he's a good example of how it's gone to his head already. Shout out to Fight Sport Talk for the super chat. He says, I think Usyk has the best resume of all the undisputed champions in the full belt era. Also, Don Charles is almost as fake as Fury and as dumb as Wilder. It'd be hard to be as disingenuous a character as Fury. I'm not going to put Don Charles in that category, personally, but as dumb as Wilder, I get where you're going, and big up for the super chat. Don Charles is definitely an overly emotional character, and because he's so emotional, that emotion supersedes his intellect. I mean, he was up on TalkSport claiming to be this wise old man. I'm so wise, and I know this, and I know. I'm like, this guy's acting like, none of his fighters have ever lost. That's the kind of energy he was giving off. Like, how dare you pick against my fighter? If this is the subtext I was getting. If I'm training somebody there, that's a dead cert to win. Hang on, how many times did you train Derek Chisora and he lost with you in the corner? Now he wants to be mad at people for picking against Daniel Dubois when he fought Hrgovic and Miller and AJ. Like, give it a rest. Give it a rest. All right, Deep Random Thinker, shout out for the super chat. He said, how dare Don Charles call our king a liar, fraud and cheat? Disgusting. Hope Usyk triple knee. What does he say? Brock's up triple knee in a rematch. I guess you meant to say. It says Brock's, but Brock's up triple knee in a rematch. All hail Alexander the Great. I sent some sarcasm there, but thank you for the super chat. It's not about trying to be an Usyk fanboy. It's just recognizing what a fighter has actually achieved. As a boxing fan, and think about what I'm saying here, a boxing fan, not an Usyk fan or a Fury fan or an AJ fan, a boxing fan. How do you want champions to behave? Do you want them to long it out and, build a fight up for 2 years, in which time the guy who they're thinking about fighting eventually might get beat, or they themselves might get beat for building a fight up? Is that the kind of champion you want? Or do you want a champion who's going to go out there and fight all of the top guys at the very earliest opportunity? Well, that's what we've got with Usyk. So I don't see why anyone wouldn't give him his flowers for that. Fallergate says, Usyk needs to defend a few times to really stamp his legacy. The thing about Usyk is that he's a bit too old now, I think anyway, to have a long reign as heavyweight champion. He's pushing 40. What is he, 37 now? He's too old for a long reign. He's too old. So I think if he carries on past the Fury rematch for much longer, somebody's going to beat him, because Father Time is undefeated. And when you fought, I know Usyk is the consummate pro and he loves training and he's a maniacal trainer. But when you've been doing it for as long as he has and you've been training as maniacally as he has, and you reach that peak emotionally and psychologically of being undisputed and, beating Fury twice and beating AJ twice, when you've reached that kind of peak, it's very hard to get up for fights after that, especially at that age. So I don't personally think Usyk has got that much left. Yeah, let's say whether the Fury fight rematch happens or not, I don't see Usyk staying at the top for that much longer. I think at that age, there's a limited time for him to remain in the throne. And as Mike Oxlong said there, very good comment, Usyk is 38 plus with a young man. Indeed, he's got a young man style. And you also make a good point there about how much he's slowed down since the AJ fight. Indeed, you go back and watch that first AJ fight, Usyk AJ 1. Usyk was clearly faster then and more mobile then. than when he fought Fury. You can see it. The hand speed is noticeably faster against AJ than it was against Fury. Against AJ, I think he was, 33, 34? So yeah, that's Father Time. Yeah, big up Mike. Yeah, back and forth like a metronome with a head movement. Exactly, Wiz. Usyk's head movement in that first AJ fight was non-stop. I mean, he literally didn't keep his head still. Against Fury, he was a lot more static with his upper body movement. Yeah? So I think personally, my opinion, that was the best version of Usyk that's ever been at heavyweight, was in the first AJ fight. He wasn't as good in the second fight. AJ was better, yeah, but Usyk wasn't quite as good in that second fight. He didn't move his head as much. He wasn't, but that first fight against AJ, I think that was his peak at heavyweight. So, yeah, he ain't got much long left, I don't think, anyway. So, in terms of him solidifying his legacy, he's already got a legacy. Undisputed Cruiserweight champion, moved up to heavyweight, mashed everybody up. That's a legacy right there. It will be everything from now on is the icing on the cake. Yeah. He doesn't have the time, I don't think, to challenge the all-time great heavyweights in terms of resume. He's too old for that now. In terms of depth of resume, right? He's not going to be able to get a heavyweight resume that deep in the amount of time he has now. Amount of time he has left. But yeah, Don Charles. I don't want to speak too much about what Spencer Fearon said, regarding Dubois' dad, because I don't know anything about that. The accusations were funny. That's one thing I can say. Just conjured up images of Baron Samedi when Spencer was making those accusations. But he said that, what he accused Dubois' dad of doing would rebound. Now, Don Charles, again, acts like he's a man of God. Well, if the accusations that Spencer Fearon made about Dubois' dad are true, what is a man of God like Don Charles doing working for a guy like that? Do you know what I mean? This guy, yeah, again, that's if it's true. I don't know whether it is. But Spencer Fearon doubled down on those accusations, by the way. Yeah, the videos got taken down where he was initially making the accusations because, maybe Dubois' dad or his team contacted those channels and told them to take it down with the cease and desist and all that kind of stuff where they could be implicated in any lawsuit. But Spencer Fearon didn't retract. He actually doubled down. When he got another opportunity, he made the same accusation again. And he said, let's go to court. He was literally saying that in the video. Let's go court, because I can prove what I'm saying about this guy. I'd be very interested to see if that has legs, if it does go to court. Because if we don't see a public apology and retraction from Spencer Fearon over those comments about Dubois' dad, and Spencer Fearon doesn't get sued, what does that mean? It usually means in those situations that the person making the accusation actually can substantiate it. Yeah, because a lot of people will throw cease and desist out there as an intimidation tactic, even when they're guilty of what they're being accused of. I've seen that many times. Yeah, they try to scare people with a legal letter. So we'll see, but that's another, potential contradiction or bit of hypocrisy from Don Charles, if it's true. Acting like he's a man of God and Jesus. And Tyson Fury is the same. I mean, he's worse, really. He's always coming with the God talk. I mean, look at Fury's avatar on his Instagram page. Look at his avatar. I love Jesus. Isn't it incredible? These guys who run around talking about, and I'm not talking about all Christians here, by the way, right? So shout out to all the Christians. If you're sincere in your faith, more power to you. No, I'm talking about the guys like Tyson Fury, who run around talking all this Jesus stuff, how he's a man of God. And he is slandering everyone left, right, and center, including other brothers in Christ, like Usyk, calling him every name under the sun, mocking the way he looks, right? Calling him gappy tooth, this, that, and the other, and a rabbit, and he didn't beat me, and blah. I mean, saying F you to Usyk and all his team. Is that the way Christians are taught to behave? That's a sarcastic question. So, yeah, it's weird behavior from people like Fury. I just don't get how somebody can behave the way he does and then go on and talk about Jesus and God. It's kind of like those girls who do OnlyFans, yeah? And then you see him on some podcast talking about, I put my faith in God. In God? You're spreading your legs for like £5 a pop or something on OnlyFans. And then you've got the nerve to talk about God and I trust God. What? God? I don't know which God you're talking about. It's definitely not the God of the Bible. He's got a special place in hell for OnlyFans chicks. But Fury's like the male equivalent, right? He does all these things that are so unchristian egregiously. Yeah, because some Christian fans of Tyson Fury, and I find them to be very naive people, will try and defend Fury and they'll say, well, we all sin and, you know, this, that, and the other. None of us are perfect. Okay, that's cool. But with Tyson Fury, it's not like he makes a slip up here and a slip up there. It's constant and it's egregious how unchristian his behavior is and his rhetoric and his lie, just non-stop lying. Does a man not know about the 10 Commandments? Thou shalt not bear false witness. How many lies is it? If I had £1 for every time Tyson Fury told a lie, I'd probably have more money than him. And he's always talking to Jesus stuff. I don't get it. It's weird. Very weird. Ocean Blue says, apparently Michael Francis is a fan of Fury. Tells you all you need to know. Michael Francis is now good friends with Sammy Gravano. That also tells you all you need to know about Michael Francis. Sammy Gravano. I mean, good God, man. Yeah, Francis is supposed to be a Christian too, right? But somehow he's like good buddies with Gravano. The man who was who ratted on how many people in the mob? 30 people or something. You know, he only wants to talk about Gotti. No, he ratted on like 30 people. And he had to confess as part of his deal, his original deal. He had to confess to like 20, being involved in over 20 red rums. And he's unrepentant, this guy, Gravano. And that's okay, he's a mobster. You know, mobsters do what mobsters do. He's a gangster. Cool, whatever. I don't care about mobsters. They do what they do. That's their world. The point is, you've got another ex-mobster in Francis who acts like he's turned his life around and he's a Christian and this and that. Why would you be buddying up with a guy like Gravano? How does that make sense? You are the company you keep. And he's got this old mob guy around him. Come on, man. Come on. Yeah, Ocean Blue says Francis always praising God at the end of every video. Yeah, not to go in on these guys, but that type of behavior, you know, people who are always talking up their belief in God and this and that and all the other, and then they behave in a way that is completely contradictory to it all. I don't understand it. Yeah? If you're not really that good of a Christian, then don't bang on about being a Christian all the time. That's the simple solution. The fact that you constantly do it, it's like you're trying to cover up for something. That's the way it comes across to me. So crazy. Kylie says we're living in a weird era where former mob guys have YouTube channels and podcasts. Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? It's very weird. And most of them are rats as well, snitches. Then I don't particularly care if they're snitches, right? That's their world, and they have their little fake set of rules which they don't really follow, or they follow very selectively. Whatever, I don't care who's a snitch or whatever. But the point is, it should actually show you, it should show the young people that think that crime and all that kind of stuff is glamorous. When you see all these mobsters who are very high up in the organization, the ones who are actually alive and making money and are public figures now, they're nearly all grasses, right? The ones who actually kept their mouth closed, they're either 6 feet deep or they're rotting in prison for the rest of their lives. But the ones who are actually still out and about, they're all the rats. So that's how fake the game is. Yeah, that's how fake the game is. I'd advise any young people, don't get involved in all that in the first place. Then you won't have to worry about, people questioning your credibility, this, that, and the other. If you're not coming from the perspective of being, a tough guy in the street, then that's never going to be a conversation. But once you put yourself out there, I was a former mobster, I was this and I was that, what happens is everybody in that community starts to scrutinize your past. And that's what's happened to all of these guys. Everyone start coming out scrutinizing their past, and you've got people making accusations about this and that, and who the hell needs all that? Tito says Sammy once said the day he is before God and being judged, that he would tell him what about all the kids and people you let suffer. Literally points the finger back at everyone, including God. Well, you know what? From an objective point of view, I'm okay with him saying that, with Gravano saying that, right? Because I'll be damned if I know what this reality really is, why it's so unfair. Fairness is a human concept anyway. But Gravano is what he is. So my issue is not so much with Gravano. He is a killer and a dangerous individual, and somebody that you would not trust if you had any sense about you to tell you the time in a room full of clocks. Okay? That's just who he is. But Francis, all of a sudden being, best buddies with him when he acts like he's a born again Christian and a reformed man. Why would you have someone like that around you? Yeah, Adam, you named the operative word right there. Hustle. Been on that hustle for 20 years. And particularly in America, church is a hustle. That whole God thing is a hustle. So for some of them, I understand what it's about. Right, it's a hustle. But for Tyson Fury, does Tyson Fury use Christianity as a hustle? I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe that's his really sloppy way of trying to make it a hustle. I don't know. He's not doing a very good job, I don't think. There are some, as I say, naive Christians who follow Tyson Fury as a brother in Christ. Right? But I don't think there's that many of them who do that. Hakeem says, how influential do you think your channel is on the boxing scene in the UK and overseas? I know that there's a lot of people, a lot of well-known fighters, maybe promoters, who have watched my content over the years and maybe don't acknowledge it. But I don't really think too much about it, to be fair. I don't sit around thinking, wow, I'm so influential and, you know, this, that, and the other. I don't really sit around thinking about it too much. As I say, when True Yarde appeared in the chat a few live streams back and bigged me up, I wasn't surprised. Yeah, I wasn't surprised because, you know, I'd seen some of True Yarde's videos and whatever, and he made a lot of the same points I was making. And obviously, people can make the same point coincidentally. There's only so many points you can make about boxing, right? It's not exactly, you know, particle physics, is it? Right? Two men getting in the ring and having a fight. There aren't that many different angles you can take on a fight or on a fighter's behavior. So yeah, you know, two people can coincidentally make the same point independent of each other. That happens all the time. But when you see somebody consistently say a lot of the things that you say, you're like, okay, maybe this person watches my videos. And indeed, he acknowledged when he turned up in the chat that he's been watching my videos for a long time. And yeah, so if True Yarde is watching my videos, and many fighters over the years have spoken about watching my videos, from Dylan White to Dave Allen to Lawrence Okolie, you know, several others, then yeah, I'm sure there are many other people, well-known fighters and so on, maybe promoters that have watched them over the years, but whatever, you know. So we'll read some of these comments here. Adam F. Patrick says, Steve Kim referenced Hatman on Twitter. The Overtrained, big up. We've got Birmingham in the house here, people. He says, Hatman, one of them ones that man's jacking his swag. I reckon all the UK mans on his channel in secret. I mean, maybe. This is all I'll say about the fighters, potentially big fighters, promoters or whatever, who watch my channel and don't acknowledge that they watch my channel. They don't have to acknowledge. They don't have to acknowledge my channel. You know, it's not like not like I'm the mob don here who needs tribute. You know, whenever people come over here, you must acknowledge. And no, they don't have to. But it'd be nice if one of those millionaires could drop a super chat every now and then. That'd be nice. Don't even leave a comment. One of those millionaires come over here, you know, just drop me a couple racks. You know, just show some appreciation. Out of your 7-figure bank balance. You know, you spent more than that, you know, dating some cheap sketel, huh? On a one-night stand, you spent more than a couple racks. Some of these millionaire guys. So, you know, give it to somebody that's going to put it to better use. Any of these millionaire boxers, come over to my live stream. Drop a couple racks in the super chat. You ain't got to big me up. Just drop the racks in there. Sean says, have you ever attended a boxing match in Vegas? I have not. I've never been to Vegas. I've been to New York, Miami. Never been to Vegas. The Overtrain says, "How man looking tribute?" I mean, you know, if these guys are millionaires, then a super chat from them should look very different to a super chat from a regular member of the public, right? How much do these guys spend on dates? You know, some of these simpish millionaire guys flying these chicks out, spend 5K on a date, put her up in a hotel. You know, when they live out in Dubai, tax reasons. Flying chicks out from the other side of the world. Shout out to Deep Random Thinker for the super chat again. He said, Usyk is going to knock Fury out so cold next time around that the Tipsy King. I like that one, the Tipsy King. is going to say Happy New Year again 10 days early. Mark these words. They're marked. Shout out for the super chat. Olu says, I want to be a millionaire so bad. Don't we all? I'd like to think if I was a millionaire, I'd be very generous. You know, like Mansa Musa, when he went on his pilgrimage to Mecca in the Middle Ages, he gave away so much gold, so the story goes, on his journey from West Africa, you know, from Mali all the way through into the Arabian Peninsula. He gave away so much gold along the way that it actually messed with the gold price, the global gold price, because he was giving so much of it away for free. I don't think I'll be that extreme, but you know. Robert says, I got a feeling that millionaires don't become rich by being generous. That's true. They don't become rich by being generous. But once you are rich, you know. But I guess, you know, you make a good point because it's the mentality, isn't it? In order to get there in the first place, you have to be a bit of a miser. Not necessarily have to be, but in many cases, being a miser helps you get rich. I don't know if you guys know who Nicholas Van Hoogstraten is. Yeah, I remember watching a documentary. I've known who he is for years, but I remember watching a documentary about Nicholas Van Hoogstraten. He's a British businessman, obviously of Dutch descent. And in this documentary, he ran a bunch of hotels, and I think, you know, he had loads of properties and whatever in the Brighton and Hove area. And it was like a fly on the wall type scenario. And he he wouldn't even waste paper. This is a multi-millionaire, Van Hoogstraten. He wouldn't even waste paper. So he would take like used envelopes and he would use those to write notes and, you know, all sorts of like business information. He'd write on the back of envelopes. And yeah, that's the mentality he had. He was that much of a penny pincher that he wouldn't even. Yeah, crazy. Casa says that crazy guy with the mental house. Yeah, the abandoned mansion. Van Hoogstraten, a very charismatic guy, by the way. Very charismatic guy. What a character. Not somebody I want as my friend, you understand? But yeah, funny. Funny the way that Paul Sykes was funny to watch videos of him, you know? You won't want to be friends with a guy, but, you know, from a distance, it's entertaining. Paul McAllister says, Mike Ashley, the Sports Direct owner, won't even buy himself a suitcase. He carries all the stuff in a carrier bag from the supermarket. Yeah, that's, or a briefcase. Yeah, that's the mentality that some of them have. Yeah. They're such they penny pinch their way to the top. But not everybody does it like that. There are some people who get rich without being, I mean, a former boss of mine, when I was working as a bouncer, he became a millionaire. He's now a multi-millionaire. So I saw him start his business. Yeah, I worked for him when he started his business. And I saw him go from that, having no property, no office, nothing. And now he's a multi-millionaire. And he was one of the most penny-pinching, mean-spirited, Scrooge McDuck misers you will ever come across in your life. I mean, that guy was something else. He was something else with it. Like, just to give you a little insight into what this guy was like. So When I was working as a bouncer, that particular guy, yeah, who became the millionaire, who owned a security company, he used to smoke, right, the sticky green stuff, and he used to like a bit of the old nose candy, yeah? Now, at this particular club that we were working at, is either the local council or the police or whoever it was, they were complaining that there were too many substances being sold and taken in certain venues, right? So they wanted to see the venues actually be proactive in confiscating the stuff, in getting people arrested and so on and so forth. So this guy who smokes on a regular, who's got the nose candy, right? who's sniffing the devil's dandruff on a regular. There was some student coming out of the club one time when I was there. Yeah. He just came around checking, the different doors and whatever. And this student, typical scruffy student dressed like a skater or something. He comes out. And I can't remember how it even got to this, but I think the student came out and he took something out of his pocket and he had a little bit of green on him. Yeah. A little bit of the sticky stuff. Yeah. And he just started billing up outside. And so my boss at the time said, "Oh, what you got there? Oh, what you got there?" And he grabbed the guy. Wrestled him to the ground. Asked for my assistance in restraining him. "I'm going to call the police." That's the kind of guy he was. Bear in mind, he smoked the stuff himself. He's trying to get a student arrested for a bit of puff so that he could, build the reputation of his business. I mean, unbelievable. And obviously, hell no, I didn't help him. Hell no, I didn't help him. And the student got away. Yeah? Hell no. I would not be part of that. Hell no. But yeah, he's a multi-millionaire now. With that messed up hypocritical mentality. The Zombie Dome says, "You said no to your boss, rare trait." Well, I didn't have a contract. It was all done on like a word and a handshake and all that. Down the line, he tried to get me to sign a contract and I was like, "Nah, I don't want to sign no contract." And that's one of the reasons that we ended up falling out a couple years later. But yeah, we had no contract or anything like that. And also, there was at first anyway, before he started making money, there was a certain amount of respect because we met through boxing because he used to do a bit of boxing as well. And I sparred with him, mashed him up. Yeah. And he used to see me in the gym and that's why he approached me, wanted me to work for his company and whatever. So I mashed him up. So there was a certain amount of respect there because he knew that, yeah. Later on, when he started making loads of money or a decent amount of money, he started getting more disrespectful. He had more heavies around him and, all that kind of stuff. And he started talking to me in a certain way, which he never would have talked to me before. Shout out to Ricky Torres for the super chat. He said, Ryan Garcia hugging Tyson Fury before he fought Usyk, saying, "Good looking lad." Ryan said, "You're going to win." And Fury and Ryan said, "Yes." But there you go. Ryan Garcia is another example. Man talks all the Christ and the Jesus stuff. And yeah, Ryan Garcia is a great example. Ocean Blue says, "Is that the guy you broke your hand against?" Yes. Yeah, that's the same guy that I broke my hand against in sparring. Apex Bossman says, what was your reaction when he started getting cheeky? Well, I cussed him out. We had a big row. I cussed him out. He went his way and I went mine. Yeah. We had a big argument on the phone. not face to face, mind, you know. But yeah, once he reached a certain level and he had certain people around him and he was making a certain amount of money, that's when he started getting disrespectful. All right, question here from Naeem Islam. He says, how do you think Fury from the second Wilder fight would have done against 2021 Usyk from the first AJ fight? I reckon it would have been similar because Fury has deteriorated more than Usyk. Despite the fact that Usyk is older, Fury's deteriorated more for my money. But how good is Tyson Fury? He's a good fighter. But, you know, because he wasn't fighting great fighters, that many of them anyway, it's hard to really gauge, you know? If you count Usyk's cruiserweight competition, he's got a much deeper resume than Tyson Fury, even his heavyweight competition, right? Tyson Fury fought Wilder 3 times. How good was Wilder? He fought Klitschko donkeys years ago, and Dylan White, who didn't have any punch resistance by that point. Whereas Usyk has fought young Daniel Dubois. He done AJ twice when AJ was still fairly decent. He did Fury, and look what he did at cruiserweight. So Usyk is more proven. So I want to say, in that scenario that you described, the Fury from the second Wilder fight and the Usyk from the first AJ fight, I'll go with Usyk again. Yeah, let's put Andy Yarde back on the screen here because that's one of the most recent bits of news. Here you go, Anthony Yarde, signing with Boxer, apparently. All right, interesting question here, which will need to be expanded upon. Sosa says, would love to date a girl that doesn't go to the gym. Oh, would you love to date a girl that doesn't go to the gym? What do you mean by that? Like, what's the context that you're asking that which you're asking that question? Would you love to date a girl that doesn't go to the gym? Are you talking about a fat girl? Or are you just talking about a girl that is a normal size but doesn't go to the gym all the time to take selfies and, you know, bend over the weights machine or whatever in front of other dudes? Isaac says, do you prefer thick or slim? Well, we need to distinguish between thick and fat, right? Because there's a lot of girls out there who are built like Andy Ruiz and they're talking about they're curvaceous and thick. No, that's not curvaceous and thick. But if you're talking about like curvy, hell yeah, I prefer that than skinny. I don't like skinny girls, got no shape. Can't work with that. Lizzo, yeah. Lizzo is not curvaceous. That's not curvaceous. Okay, this guy says gym chicks are annoying. In what way? Do you mean the gym chicks who just go to the gym just to pose for selfies and all that. Because yeah, if you go in a gym in this day and age, you're going to see a bunch of girls in their 20s who haven't even built, I mean, I'm not saying all of them, but there's going to be a certain percentage of them who go in there and they don't even break a sweat. They just move around and take selfies for like half an hour and then they go home. I'm like, yo, you got a gym membership just to do that? That's crazy. Yeah, Ruiz is a catfish master. Ruiz could show some of these gym chicks a thing or two about catfishing. Oh my gosh, Andy Ruiz. He's criminal with it. I think there should be charges brought against Andy Ruiz for the catfishing that he's been guilty of. Isaac says, can you give an example of a female celebrity you like? I don't really like celebrity chicks. I've never really liked celebrity girls since I was young. You know, never really been into celebrity girls at all. Brandon says, what do you think about approaching random girls in public? Well, I said earlier on, if I had £1 for every lie Tyson Fury has told, I'd probably have more money than him. Well, if I had £1 for all the girls I've approached in public, yeah, I've approached loads of girls. I mean, in my generation, it was the norm. We all used to approach girls in public. That was like standard. But I guess with the younger generation, because of the way that society has been engineered, not so many guys do it now. Everybody hooks up online through DMs and all this type of stuff. People don't really approach the same way that we did back in the days when there was no social media, there was no Instagram, there was no dating apps. So, yeah. Isaac says DM approach is easier. Well, I want to say that a DM approach might be easier, but I reckon your success rate will be lower DMing. Why? Because that same girl has got DMs from like 100 other guys in a week. Yeah, she don't get approached as much as she gets DM'd. And you can't really, make a girl feel your presence and feel your vibe and feel your energy in a DM. But in real life, you can look her in the eye and she can hear the tone of your voice and look at your body language, and she can discern things about you that she can't discern through a DM. The DM's too impersonal. Andy Hall says, did Fury duck Usyk last year mainly because he lost the mental battle with me, which has always been one of his main strengths and confidence builders? I think that's part of it. I definitely think that's part of it. He realized quite early on that Usyk was a guy who he wouldn't be able to control psychologically the way he did with Vladimir Klitschko, the way he did with Deontay Wilder. He realized early that you couldn't get to Usyk with all the mind games. They're not going to work on him. And I do think that kind of made Tyson Fury feel a bit uncomfortable. They would be dealing with a guy who's not only a supreme boxer, but a guy who also is very mentally strong. And that should be a lesson, really, because I remember in the run-up to the Usyk Fury fight, there was a couple of people who left comments saying that, well, Usyk is Ukrainian and he's got a similar mentality to Vladimir Klitschko. And do you think that he'll get psyched out by Fury the same way that Klitschko was psyched out? And I said, absolutely not. Yeah, the only thing that Usyk and Vladimir Klitschko have got in common, they're, you know, they got the same passport and they're both gold medalists. But in terms of their mentality, totally different mentality. Vladimir Klitschko has got a typical on-top fighter mentality because for most of his amateur career and pro career, he was always physically superior to most of his opponents and also technically superior. So he was able to hide behind his talent for the longest time and never really had to scrap it out with anyone. That was Vladimir Klitschko through most of his amateur career, most of his pro career. Very few opponents were really able to draw Vladimir into a tough fight. Some of them did, and when they did, he tended to fold. A guy like Usyk, who didn't have the physical advantages, the size and the strength and all that kind of stuff over most of the guys he was fighting, from amateurs through to the pros. No, he had to build his inner resolve from day one. He was always in tough fights. He was always in against guys who he wasn't necessarily superior to physically. So he had to be mentally strong to be successful against guys like that. Yeah, totally different to Vladimir Klitschko. Totally different. And Tyson Fury knew when he came up against Usyk, when Usyk beat AJ twice, he knew this was a different kettle of fish to the guys he'd been fighting in the past, including Vladimir. He knew he was a different kettle of fish. Like psychologically. Paul McAllister says, funniest post-fight interview. Funniest post-fight interview. I guess Muhammad Ali's interview after the Rumble in the Jungle was funny. Because Ali was just like ranting. That was quite funny. I don't know. I mean, interviews in general, not necessarily post-fight. Tyson Fury's famous, it would take 10 plumbers to do you interview. Where he was talking about David Price. Yeah, that was a classic right there. Hilarious. That's back when Tyson Fury was still funny. See, Tyson Fury was funny then because he was unintentional. He wasn't trying to be funny. Yeah, that interview's a classic. I don't even know what it means. It would take 10 plumbers to do you. I don't know what that means, but it was funny all the same. Okay, yeah, that was definitely one. David Fisher says Larry Merchant and Floyd Mayweather. Yeah. Where Larry Merchant said if I was, 10 years younger or 20 years younger, whatever it was, I'd knock you out. Yeah, I remember that one. That was crazy. Sean says Tony Thompson post-fight against Price was funny. Yeah, was that the one about where he made the comment about putting his wife in a wheelchair? Yeah, that was crazy, yeah. Oh yeah, Mike Tyson post-fight interviews were often funny. Yeah, Spinal. That was after the Clifford Etienne fight. I broke my back. Spinal. Mike Tyson was one of the most unintentionally funny boxers to ever live. Seriously. I broke my back. Spinal. And the fact he said it with a straight face. I broke my back. Yeah. Shout out to you mentioned that one. That was hilarious. It's final. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Mike did some funny interviews. One of the funniest interviews was in the run-up to the rematch with Razor Ruddock, where he started saying all that fruity stuff, saying he wanted to make Razor Ruddock his girlfriend, and I'll kiss you with those big lips. Yeah, that was off key, but it was hilarious. You know, he had the dark glasses on, and Razor Ruddock was like, I don't need to go, you know, in dark glasses looking like some hitman and this, that, and they were going back and forth. And Tyson just killed all of Razor Ruddock's chat by saying, I'm going to make you my girlfriend. Pause. Yeah, that was a madness. Yeah, Maxwell says, he said it with an incredibly worried expression as well. Yeah, Mike Tyson, when he said, spinal. Broke my back. Crazy. Leo says, hey man, what are your thoughts on the rap group Wu-Tang Clan? I was a big Wu-Tang fan back in the days. A big Wu-Tang fan. Back in the 90s. You know, 36 Chambers, Liquid Swords, the Purple Tape. Oh yes, I owned the Purple Tape. Only built for Cuban links. My favorite Wu-Tang albums were 36 Chambers, Liquid Swords, Purple Tape. That's probably it. Those three were my favorite. Yeah, Iron Man was cool. Supreme Clientele was cool. These are obviously solo albums. In terms of collective, like proper Wu-Tang albums, they only made one good album, really. 36 Chambers. The rest of them were like, meh. Jay, the interview you're talking about was after the Tyrell Biggs fight. Yeah. Mike Tyson made those comments about Tyrell Biggs, saying he was crying like a girl when he got hit. Yeah. That was one of the last fights. I'm not sure if it was the last, but that was one of the last ever fights that was scheduled for 15 rounds. Mike Tyson never actually went 15 rounds, but he was in a fight that was scheduled for 15. Yeah, the Tyrell Biggs fight, scheduled for 15 rounds. Yeah, Isaac says 15-round boxing matches is crazy. Well, it used to be a lot longer than that. It used to be like 20, 30, 40-round boxing matches in the very early days. I see somebody replying to someone in the chat. I didn't see the original comment, but they're saying, Ox Carlos. Ox Carlos. Yeah, that's a Getz reference there. That was a funny situation. Getz against Bashi in Peckham near Mr. Wong's house. Ox Carlos was a bad boy in jail. And like when people intervened, they started basically trying to hold Getz back and tell him to calm down. And Bashi was like, no, it's cool. I'm calm. I'm like, Bashi, nobody's trying to hold you back, bro. Stop it. Yeah, Getz was upset. Bashi definitely won because, you know, that's what a battle's all about, innit? Trying to get one over on the other guy in the minds of the crowd, of the audience. Ali says, do you listen to any of the contemporary rappers today? Not really. I'm too old for rap. You know, I listen to reggae, Motown and stuff like that. Once in a blue moon, I'll listen to some rap music, you know, one song here or there. But I'm a middle-aged man. You know, you grow out of certain things. And also, I don't like the mentality that listening to rap puts me in. Puts me in an aggressive mood. I don't want to be in an aggressive. I'm too old for that. I'm too old to be squaring up to people and driving crazy and all that. Common Sense says, just joined. Don't know if somebody's asked already. What do you think about Diddy? Not much. The same as I've always thought about him. Not much. You know, he was always like a weird guy to me. He could never rap. And he didn't really produce anything. He called himself a producer, but when you actually check the credits, he didn't really produce anything. He had the track masters and other people that were doing the producing. So I was always kind of confused as to what his role actually was. Yeah, because he was a terrible rapper, didn't actually make any beats. Okay, he was a record label owner, bad boy. But most of the artists that were with, you know, Bad Boy, they were signed to a larger umbrella company. So what was the point of Bad Boy? You know, so I was always just kind of confused about what his role actually was. This talentless guy who couldn't rap and he couldn't even dance. Apparently, he had, like, you know, growing up in Mount Vernon, he took dance classes and all this type of stuff. And I couldn't understand it because the guy couldn't dance. So I never really understood what his whole role was. I just found him to be an annoying character back in the 90s. I didn't suspect, to be honest, that he was getting up to all the stuff he was getting up to because I really didn't pay much attention to him. I wasn't thinking about, you know, is Puffy this sinister individual who's doing this, that, and I really didn't care. You know, he wasn't one of the artists that I ever listened to or anything like that. So whatever. I never really gave him much thought. But the stuff that's coming out about him now, the baby oil and all that kind of stuff, I mean, it's not surprising. The entertainment industry, it's full of a lot of weird people. So full of a lot of weird people. And Diddy is definitely not the only one. You know, if anyone thinks that it's just Diddy and there isn't a whole heap of other people bigger, more wealthy, more powerful than him that are doing the same stuff or worse, I think you're very naive. I think the people that they're getting now, the Diddys of the world, they're low-hanging fruit. And I think, in my opinion, they're being taken down by other people who probably do the same thing that Diddy, the same kind of stuff that Diddy's been accused of doing. That's how dirty the game is. It's kind of like the drug game, yeah? You'll get high-level gangsters in the drug game who actually delete informants, right? Police informants, yeah? Take out people for talking to the police. All the while, they themselves are high-level informants. That's what the drug game is like. Yeah, the guy going out there putting snitches under the ground, he himself is working with the police at a high level. That's how dirty it is. So, yeah, I think Diddy's probably been taken down by people who are probably even more dirty than he is. You know, but they convince the public that there's only a few bad apples when really the whole thing's rotten. That's my opinion. As in, the whole industry is rotten. Because once you start making money, you're in a position to, you know, bribe people, pay people to do things for you, and to indulge all of your vices, right? And so you get a culture within many industries of people indulging all their vices and getting away with it for decades, right? It's a culture. It's like the whole industry is rotten. You know, if you think that taking down Diddy is all of a sudden going to make that industry okay to go into, and there'll be no more predators in there, again, I think you're badly mistaken. Anyone who thinks that. There's probably many other Diddys out there and much worse. Robert says, favorite Wu-Tang song. Protect Your Neck. That's got to be up there. Cream. And these are the obvious ones. But Protect Your Neck's got to be there. Cream. Can It Be All So Simple? Which other ones now? Cold World from the Liquid Swords album. Genius. Cold World. That's one of my favorites. What others are there? Daytona. Is it called Daytona 500 on the Iron Man album? I like that song. What else is there? I like, what's that one called now? Criminology from the Purple Tape. Criminology. I love that beat on Criminology. It just sounds so mafioso. You know? So atmospheric. Yeah. Criminology is a great beat. I like that whole album. Jackie Boy Johnson says, favorite movie. Now we're really talking. Movie. God, there are so many great movies. So many great movies. I couldn't give you one. I got many favorite movies. Gangs of New York. Definitely one of my favorite movies. I think Gangs of New York is really underrated, actually. You don't really hear it brought up as, you know, in too many lists as, you know, the best movie of all time or whatever. But Gangs of New York for me is a really underrated film. I love that movie, Gangs of New York. That stars Daniel Day-Lewis with Cameron Diaz and who else is in it now? Daniel Day-Lewis, Cameron Diaz, Leonardo DiCaprio, of course. Yeah, so definitely Gangs of New York is one of them. Other favorite movies. I like The Matrix. The first movie. The second movie was cool as well. The third movie was like, but really, you need to take them all as one movie because on an esoteric level, it all ties in. Yeah, if you understand like the symbolism in the Matrix and all that. So you have to view it as all one movie, all three parts, even though the third part is the weakest. So I like The Matrix. Pulp Fiction. I mean, when Pulp Fiction came out, just to give a bit of context for maybe people who are younger, Pulp Fiction really was groundbreaking because you never saw, certainly not gangster films, where there was so much like frivolous exposition as there was in Pulp Fiction. And what I mean by that is these gangsters were having like regular everyday conversations about, you know, burgers in McDonald's and all this, like, as I say, just chit chat, which normally would end up on the cutting room floor in a Hollywood studio. But Pulp Fiction changed the game in that sense, because after that, all of these like gangster movies had the same kind of, you know, conversations and dialogue and whatever, where they're having casual, it basically put gangsters in a more human light, you know, and a more humorous light. So now it's commonplace, right? But prior to Pulp Fiction, you never saw gangster movies like that, where you'd see gangsters, you know, looking kind of goofy and joking about and blunders and all that type of stuff. So yeah, Pulp Fiction, definitely one of my favorite. Foot massages, that's right. Le Big Mac. Everyone remembers that. Yeah, Le Big Mac. So yeah, Pulp Fiction is definitely up there for me. Apocalypse Now. Love that movie. Apocalypse Now. With Martin Sheen. Definitely one of my favorites. Martin Sheen and Marlon Brando. Even Harrison Ford makes a little cameo in that one. So, yeah, I like that one. Blade Runner 2049, that's a good film. But I can't say it's one of my favorites, but it's good. I like the way they redid the baseline test, because they had a baseline test in the original, the Ridley Scott original Blade Runner. But the way they redid the baseline test for the replicants in Blade Runner 2024, the little call and response thing, I really like that. Okay, somebody here saying Pulp Fiction is so vastly overrated. There you go. Everybody's got different tastes. Personally, I really like Pulp Fiction. I don't think it's overrated at all. I think it's a great film. Yeah, I do like The Dark Knight. That's definitely one of my favorite films as well, because of mainly Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. Somebody mentioned Scarface there. Scarface is an iconic movie, but I don't know whether it's one of my favorite movies. But it's iconic, you know, so many lines in there, say hello to my little friend and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's, I like it, but I wouldn't put it up there as one of my favorites. I actually prefer another Pacino movie. I think it was directed by the same guy, De Palma, right? Carlito's Way. I prefer Carlito's Way to Scar. Somebody else has mentioned it there as well, yeah. Carlito's Way is Pacino's best film apart from Godfather 2, yeah. I prefer Carlito's Way to Scarface. Carlito's Way is like the perfect cautionary tale for the street life, you know, getting dragged back in. Obviously, there's the famous line in Godfather Part 3 where he says, just when I thought I was out, they dragged me back in. But that's what actually happens in Carlito's Way. You know, minor spoiler there. Benny Blanco from the Bronx. Yeah. Everybody is fantastic in Carlito's Way. From Al Pacino to Sean Penn, who plays the sleazy lawyer. That was a great performance by Sean Penn in that film. Callum says, do you like horror films? Not particularly. Not particularly. I'm not like a massive fan of them. If it's like sci-fi horror, I'm more likely to like it. So the first Alien film, that's one of my favorite films of all time. The first Alien film, directed by Ridley Scott. But horror in general, it's not something that I really gravitate towards. If I ever do watch horror films, it tends to be like the supernatural ones, because I find them more funny. Yeah, to me, horror movies are funny. I don't watch them and, you know, I find them funny. So, yeah, the supernatural horror movies tend to make me laugh more. So, if I do watch them, it'll usually be those, like supernatural horrors. Yeah, Event Horizon, I like that film. And Event Horizon inspired a video game called Dead Space. They took a lot of the aesthetic and, you know, so many of the things in Dead Space were taken from Event Horizon. Apex says movies are going out of fashion. Yeah, Hollywood is dead now. They've basically got more or less one good director left, which is Chris Nolan, who directed Interstellar. Yeah, Interstellar was a good film. So you got Chris Nolan left in Hollywood making actual movies. That's it. Most of the talent in Hollywood seems to be now working on series, TV series. They're not really making movies. Yeah, there's very few talented directors still making Hollywood movies now. All the talent is making series for Netflix and all the other streaming platforms. But Chris Nolan still, whenever he puts a movie out, it's usually worth watching. Black Dynamite says, I remember you being the only Killzone fan back in the day. Well, maybe not the only one, but one of the few. It had a cult following, particularly Killzone 2, but Killzone 3 as well. I used to really like Killzone 3. Shadowfall was not very good, but I used to play it anyway. But Killzone 3 was my favorite first-person shooter of all time. Killzone 3. I love that game. When it comes to online multiplayer, that is, it was my favorite. I'm not talking about campaign. Glad Titan says, Hatman, do you think the new boxing game Undisputed is going to be any good? Will you play it? No, I actually don't like boxing games. I don't like boxing games. When I was a teenager, there was a few boxing games I would play on the Mega Drive or the Genesis, as it's called in America, in other territories. So there was a few boxing games I'd play on the Mega Drive, such as Evander Holyfield boxing, Buster Douglas boxing, and Muhammad Ali boxing. And I want to say this right here. Yeah, I don't make this claim lightly. But it's a claim that's impossible to verify, so you can take it or leave it. But I think I was the greatest Evander Holyfield boxing player in the history of mankind. I swear. I beat so, obviously this is before online matches, but the amount of people that I played Evander Holyfield boxing against, I was an absolute beast at that game. A beast. That's of all the games I've ever played in my life, I've never been so good at a game as I was at Evander Holyfield boxing on the Sega Mega Drive. I was a monster at that game. But yeah, so I liked Evander Holyfield boxing back in the days. Muhammad Ali boxing on the Mega Drive as well. But other than that, I've never really liked boxing games. I never liked Fight Night. Never liked any of them. And I definitely won't be playing this new one, Undisputed. It just looks like Fight Night, you know. The main thing that kind of annoys me about most boxing games is how robotic the movement is. It's not fluid at all. It's just so robotic and slow, you know? It's not satisfying to play those games. When you actually can go to the gym and punch stuff yourself, spar people, that's far more satisfying than playing a boxing game. So, don't really like boxing games. Apex says, Fight Night for me is about sitting down with your mates and having a laugh. A lot of people love Fight Night. And that's all good, you know. But me personally, it's not for me. Not really a fan. Yeah, exactly. Glad Tidings. The punch mechanics are so off, robotic, and very clunky. Yeah. And it baffles me because when you look at like basketball games, American football games, you know, proper football, I should have called it gridiron, right? And then actual football like FIFA, the movement in those games is so fluid and realistic. But with boxing games, they just can't get realistic movement at all. It's very clunky and robotic. Car Droid said AJ will look absolutely amazing in a boxing game. Well, maybe not AJ, but Frank Bruno for sure. Yeah, Frank Bruno, definitely. All right, peeps, I'm going to turn this one in. Shout out to everybody for joining me on this live stream. Biggest shout out to everybody who sent me a super chat. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care of yourselves. Be good. Don't have nightmares about Diddy. All right, I'm out.